Welcome to Tallawah, another wonderful episode of Tallawah. I'm your host, Latoya. Today we're with Kesi Gardner, who is an educator, marketing consultant, and storyteller. Her blog is hailed as one of the top marketing blogs in Jamaica. Her blog is actually called KesiGardner.com. Kesi is a storyteller who is passionate about empowerment and the digital world. She believes in standing out above the noise. She's very passionate about the space that we have online, and she believes that Jamaica is 10 years behind. Kessie, that's pretty interesting and something I agree with. Why do you believe that Jamaica is 10 years behind in the digital world?
Well, I talked about it at the Jamaica Music Conference a little bit last week, but pretty much how I feel is that people aren't, and I'm speaking mostly about maybe like middle managers and maybe some senior executives. They're not utilizing the internet as much as they could. Most people, you would think, get email on their phone. A lot of people don't get email on their phone. They rarely check email. They rarely respond to email. And, I still have clients who call me on the phone to have a conversation about something that could have easily been an email. People are not backing up their files. People are not using the cloud. Stuff like that, and then people aren't using the power of the internet to monetize. People are afraid of Facebook, Zuckerberg, and feeling that they're big brother and being watched and being observed. But the thing is that it's a part of what I do. It's a part of my using the tools that I have in order to gain visibility and to attract opportunities and clients. And I wish people would use it more. And I mean, it's really about personal branding too, right? Creating, standing out, like I said, standing out above the noise, creating a story, a narrative about who you are as a person, because we're all special, we're all different, we all have our unique talents and abilities, and we should tell the world about them. Why do we need to wait until we get an interview on TVJ or to have page two snap us? Why not create your own interest buzz online?
Yeah, I totally agree. The world has changed. Jamaicans here and abroad, and all our listeners, you might be aware that the world is and has changed, and we are now more able to create our own brands and tell our own stories without waiting on traditional means of doing so. And Kessie, she has a rich background, which she's going to tell us about in terms of what you do, Kessie, and where are you from?
Okay, well, I was born in Jamaica, Kingston, and then I moved to New York when I was 16 because my mother got a job with the UN, and it kind of changed my whole life. It changed my whole world because growing up here, I went to Andrews. The most exciting thing we would do is maybe go to a blowout or something like that, or maybe go to the country for the week or something like that. But living in New York, and I was surrounded by art. I was surrounded by music, intellectuals, because and multinational people. I was hanging out with people from the UK, from Italy, from France. I mean, like you name it, And so it opened my world to and then I was going to school on Central Park West, which is a very upscale neighborhood, a couple blocks away from the National History Museum. So, it just really opened my world to everything, not just New York, but the world in general. Because I mean, you go and look at the exhibits, the Egyptian statues, the dinosaurs, even. I mean, it was just incredible, and so it really opened up my mind to all the possibilities And I think my mother had hoped that I would have gone to like a Ivy League school because of my time at
Mm-hmm.
that private school. But I kind of just decided that I wanted to go to art school because I had always been a creative, always painting, always drawing. Even as a child, I was always like performing. So like I was doing fashion shows and plays and dance recitals and stuff like that. So, it was always very much a part of my life. And so just being in New York, which is very rich of art, it just seemed like the path that I wanted to go on.
So when you were here in Jamaica, did you know that you wanted to be in the creative field?
Yes, I always kind of knew. I
Mm-hmm.
never felt like from, even as a teenager, I never really felt confident in my other skill sets, even though I write
Mm-hmm.
and I geography and in the environment and stuff like that. I always felt very confident about my drawing and painting skills. And I mean, my father always encouraged it because he's an architect. So he always encouraged me and motivated me. And if I needed like art supplies, he would bring me art supplies and stuff like that. So, and it was kind of our way of bonding as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so much so that my sister is a painter. Like that's what she does. She's a fine artist. So,
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah. So it just kind of seemed like the right path for me.
Okay, great. No, I read your bio and I see that you've been through a series of changes, always in the creative field, but different avenues as it relates to your career. Could you take us through your career path when after university to what you're doing now, please?
Okay, that's gonna take all day, but all right. So I actually wanted to be a children's book illustrator, believe it or not.
Okay.
Really, what I wanted to do. I wanted the freedom of creating, like I said, telling a story and sort of mapping that out. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I graduated, I realized that that was a pipe dream and that a Jamaican with no papers living in New York could not possibly make any money and survive being a children's book illustrator. But then I also got pregnant, right? So when I
Mm-hmm.
got pregnant, I had to make a decision, well, what's next, right? So I decided to come back home to Jamaica. I had my daughter up there, but then I came back to Jamaica and I was working with my brother who was at the time a web developer, and he was like, yo, come. At that time, it was like, the whole .com era where everybody was doing websites and making a ton of money and stuff.
Yeah, I
So he
remember.
come, we basically set up our family home, as an office downstairs, and I was able to like have my daughter with me while I was working, and it was great. Um, but then I decided, obviously, that I wanted to do more, so I did more. I did work at other places, and then eventually, um, I started working at McCann Erickson, which, if you work in advertising, you know that McCann Erickson is like one of the biggest global agencies in the world. And so having that opportunity was like an amazing eye-opening experience, getting to work on like with major clients and, you know, having a mentor to like guide me and give me, advice and stuff like that was good. And then that led me obviously to working at Digicel, being one of the first in-house graphic designers that they ever had. They never had one before. They always had the agency
Mm-hmm.
and sort of, helping them create, coming up with ideas and stuff like that. Then, like I said, I had the accident. And so that was kind of like eye opener for me. The car accident forced me to sort of look at where I was in my life and say, is this something that you want to continue doing? I was in a very serious relationship at the time. We were living together. We were planning to get married, and sort of put a jolt and a halt on all our plans because we were both in the accident,
Mm-hmm.
and it both affected us. And then physical aspects of that. So I received a whiplash concussion, and actually I had a brain injury as well. And so my attention span, as I said before, diminished. Physically, like I couldn't sit for long hours, and very forgetful, not able to concentrate, not able to focus, stuff like that. So I had to learn the skills to sort of cope with that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it was so hard because, working in advertising, it's, you're working 12, 15-hour days, and people are not always very understanding because
Yeah.
also as a contractor, I wasn't a full-time employee, so I didn't get the benefits of, sick leave and stuff like that. And although they were very understanding, my boss was very understanding and very supportive, and he was like, just take a break. I knew that I would not be able to go back and thrive in the way that I was before, with all of these physical problems.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was something that made me have to like decide, well, okay, am I going to continue doing this? And so I became very depressed, very sad. I felt like not only was I not able to function, I was very tired all the time and sleeping and all of that. But then, my relationship was also falling apart. So it was kind of like, what am I going to do? What is the next step? And my mother, both my parents, but especially my mother, was very like, well, this graphic design thing is not making you a lot of money, even though at the time I was making the most money that I had ever made in a job being a graphic designer, because digital pays very well. But she's like, this is not sustainable. If you continue like this, you're going to die at 50. And so she said to me, she had always kind of said, when are you going back to school? When are you going back to school? And I was like, I'm never going back. I'm never doing my master's. I'm never doing that. And she was like, but you are an intelligent person.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, graphic design is not considered the most respected field in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Really a low level paying job. I mean, unless you become a creative director, a graphic designer is not any high level thing. So she was kind of like, you decided to do this art thing, but what's next, kind of thing. And so I started to look at options. I started to look at what I could do. I wanted to be a curator. That's really what I wanted to do. That was like, my thing, because I loved art. So I interned at the gallery for a couple of months, and I got my recommendation. Even applied to schools. I actually got in to NYU to do
Mm-hmm.
to be an art curator. So it was just so funny. But then I had to be realistic as well and say, well, if I do this, I'm gonna be back doing the same thing, right?
Well, thank God that you both made it out of the accident. And sometimes life is like that. We have so much going on and it's going well, and then boom, everything changes. And what you said and what your mom said, what's next, which is a very pertinent question that we ask ourselves when we're going through that transition from, especially when we're going through what we might consider at the time one of our biggest challenges, if not our biggest challenges at that time. You mentioned though that your love for art would not have sustained you based on what was happening in Jamaica at the time, and digital graphic artists not being as respected or paid as well. Was it a conflict for you though internally to have that struggle between passion and just being practical as it relates to your career?
Well, that's an interesting question because, they tell you should only do things that you're passionate about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times we pursue careers because it's something that, we love art. So we say, okay, we're going to be a designer or a painter or whatever. But sometimes what happens is if you're doing something for a long time, you start to begin to hate it, because even though you might love it in the beginning, you start to resent it because you're not getting the level of satisfaction that you wanted. And it was actually a good time to change the careers because now everybody's a designer. It's so easy to download Photoshop or, some kind of editing app, and, you know, people can't think they're a designer, and they don't realize that, like, you actually have to go to school to learn about these things. So I felt like I needed to change who I was and who people defined me as, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Because, they kind of put you in a box and they say, okay, you're a designer. And I was like, well, but I'm other things too. Like I can write too, so
you needed that freedom to
yeah.
explore creativity on a whole.
Yeah, and I feel like people need to understand, like, there are different sides of people. Like, you're not just one thing, or you shouldn't always be one thing. And then, I mean, like, just because you wanted to be, like I said, it's like I wanted to be a children's book illustrator when I was, 18, 20, doesn't mean that I'm going to want to be the same thing at 40. Like,
yeah.
People change, people have different interests. And it's not that I don't design anymore, because I've had to do things. And because even like when I was working at an agency, I'd have to sometimes design. I'd have to go in there and fix stuff and lay out stuff because that's what just needed to be done. So, I mean, I actually was able to use the skills to be a triple threat because I could strategize, I could design, and I could write as well. So, yeah. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah.
Well, go, Kesi. Well, going back to what I interjected, you said that you went for your master's, right? What did you get the master's in, and what happened after in terms of career?
Okay, so going back to school was like a real eye opener for me because, like I said, even though I went to art school and I did get a very rich education at Pratt. I mean, we studied philosophy, we studied literature, and I mean, so it wasn't just art. I mean, they made sure that we had a very rich education. But going back to school in my 30s, and I was very fortunate too because it was an evening class. So there were a lot of people who were working, who were older people like me. It wasn't kids or anything like that. So I was very fortunate where that was concerned.
Where was this school?
It was I went to Notre Dame of Maryland University in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
So, but it was hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was very hard because I would have to take the train. I'd have to take the cab, the train, and then another train. So I'd have to travel like 2 hours every day. Well, not every day. Sorry, twice a week to Baltimore from Maryland, and then sometimes coming back. Sometimes I'd miss the train or the bus. Or have to stand in the snow and wait for the bus to come for an hour. So it wasn't easy.
Yeah, especially that snow part must be hard on you. Because right now, little breeze blow at Jamaica, all the way a freeze. So can you imagine?
Exactly. And we had a very tight budget. I was living in my brother's basement, and sometimes I didn't have heat, so I was cold a lot of the time. Sometimes having to use pennies to pay my bus fare and train fare and stuff like that. So it was hard. But the interesting thing that happened is that my mother, she had a close friend for years. They had spent some time in Jamaica, a couple. He's from Detroit, I think, originally, but he was living in DC and he was working at an NGO. And he said, I don't know, he said in passing, I think, we were having dinner or something. He said in passing, I'm looking for some interns to come and help me at my NGO. I need communications people, I need social media people, I need grant writing people, that sort of thing. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I didn't have any money. I didn't know how I was going to get to DC from Maryland. And some days, trust me, some days I wasn't sure how I was going to get home. But I did it. I think it was like 2 or 3 days a week. I'd go there. And I mean, it just kind of opened up once again my world, because first of all, it was an international NGO. They have programs in Africa. So I had to learn all about the African countries, and in communications and like PR and stuff like that, you need to know who people are, right? So if they're having an event, they'd have the diplomats come, dignitaries, ambassadors. So I would have to know who is who and be able to, tell him, okay, this is so and so from so and so, which made me have to like research and get information and stuff like that. So by the time I graduated, like I didn't even go to my graduation, because by the time I graduated, I was already working there. Like they were already putting in my application for me to get my work permit.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So from there, you transitioned. You said that you spent a couple of years there.
I spent 2 years there,
Mm-hmm.
and it was awesome. I wrote op-eds for the CEO for Huffington Post. I ran donor loyalty campaigns on social media and digital marketing. Did direct marketing campaigns. We put on events. I mean, we did everything, including like a gala they have every year, and we raised thousands of dollars for the NGO, for charity.
Yeah.
I met presidents and celebrities. I mean, it was really an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And then I worked with women mostly, and having a female mentor, very different from having a male mentor.
How so?
Because they understand, you have your family, they understand
Oh.
your relationship. Like, we as women have to endure so much more than men do. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that men don't have stuff to endure, but we have to balance everything. We have to take care of our children, we have to take care of the house, we have to take care of our relationship, we have to take care of ourselves, and there is that expectation. And so when I remember literally going to my boss and saying, look, my daughter is doing, this is America, right? They don't have GSAT in America, right? So I'm telling her that, my daughter's doing this entrance exam to high school, and she needs me to come and help her and be there and support her. She was like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, what you gotta do, family comes first, da da da. So,
that's
yeah,
a dream.
She was very supportive, because she had she has 3 girls, and she was doing the same thing, juggling her post and her husband and her 3 kids. And I mean, she would drive like 2 hours every day from outside of DC every day to come to work. She'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day. So she was very understanding.
Yeah.
But that was really the main reason why I left, was because, my daughter was here and she kind of needed, she needed me. She needed her mother. So, it was a hard decision to make. It's probably one of the hardest decisions I have ever made, because I really enjoyed working there, and we just got to do so much.
I can say, as a creative person, that's a dream, because you mentioned that you wrote for the Huffington Post. Win-win.
Yeah, speeches for him as well. We put together 2 annual reports while I was there, and I mean, I had all like creative control over what it looked like. Yeah,
that's magical. So it must have been difficult for you to leave that, for many that would have been a dream job, to come back to Jamaica, but you had to do what you had to do.
Yes.
What was the transition like coming back to Jamaica, and how did you get to what you're doing now?
Okay, so it was really hard. I got a job at an agency, and I did enjoy it, but it was hard because I didn't have the same control that I did before over certain things. And it was the same thing, like I was saying, this male dominant society where you're not respected because you're a woman. Because of the kind of personality I have, I'm not very well. I'm a little different now, but back then I wasn't very assertive. I was kind of very unsure of what I was doing. And so I didn't fight back as much. But there were days when I really got angry and upset because with advertising and just like in digital and like design trends in general is that things are constantly changing. And if you're not keeping up with stuff and not looking at what's going on around you and in the world, a lot of the times you get left behind. And I kept wanting to change things. I kept wanting, things to look fresher, newer. And it was kind of hard because I was not the creative director. I was just a measly account executive. And so, basically a paper pusher kind of thing. Had no real creative control. And then when I tried to like have more control, there was a lot of pushback. And so one day it was just like I've had enough of this. So I just left. Like I just basically left. And I don't recommend anybody doing this, but do you 2 weeks and stuff. But I just left because it was just too much for me at the time. And I felt like, you get older and you want to do your own thing. And so it kind of has led me to where I am now, where I have full control over all creative that I do. What we do is not necessarily client based. I mean, it is, meaning we have clients that we serve. So what Love Not Likes does is we create experiences for bloggers and influencers. And when I say experiences, I mean like for example, we'll be invited to cover an event. For example, Appleton had their night tour the other day with Gregory Isaacs. We would go and either write about the experience or vlog about the experience, do Instagram stories about the experience. So we're basically showing, the audience or the consumer what it's like to be there. It's experiential marketing is what it's called, but then it's from our perspective. So we have all creative control. And although the client, I've never actually had a client that has said, we don't like this, change it. Well, maybe once, but it's pretty much on board with whatever we're doing and supportive of whatever we're doing. And so it's kind of a dream job in that I've always said I want to get paid to be myself. And so now we are actually getting paid to be ourselves.
Okay. Say that I was a client or, a prospect. What would be the top 3 things that you could do for me?
Oh, okay. So basically what we do is we create a buzz. And what we like to do is we like to be in niche places or, not the mainstream. So for example, what we're doing for Reggae Month now is we're covering events that maybe have not gotten a lot of press or not a lot of coverage, but they're still good events. It's cultural activities. So they've had a film series we've done and we've covered that. They have a lecture series, we've done that as well. So we kind of try to be in spaces that are not mainstream. And don't maybe the major influencers haven't touched or covered. So we definitely do that. So we create a buzz online for you, and we create spaces. So meaning we kind of build communities around the events. And then every one of us has our own community because that's how we're able to monetize our platforms, is having our own communities. And so we're able to motivate and inspire our communities to become patrons of the events. Also, being a creative, I try to make it look nice. So we might do a photo shoot there. So it might look like just a regular event, right? But then we'll go do something cool. Like I think at the Exodus launch on my Facebook page, I actually took a picture of me and the Exodus thing was in the background, the Exodus sign. So like we try to do creative things that are interesting. I mean, like I said, we're not the major influencers and we're not trying to be major influencers.
Yeah.
Because they have their space. We are, I would say, micro influencers, and so our communities are smaller, but they're much more invested.
Effective. Yeah, that's awesome. So for all those who, possibly looking into Kesi services, she will create a buzz for you. She will create a space. Might be micro, but so much more invested and effective. And also She just make it look good because presentation matters in this digital world.
Yes, and then I mean, I do a lot of things, but I also, we have a network, so it's not just, 5 or 6 people. If you want to reach a wider audience and it is within the niche of the network, if it's travel, lifestyle, also music is a part of the network, then I can disseminate the content, disseminate the information, the press release or whatever, to those people in the network. And if it works for their niche, they will post it on their platforms. And these are like media platforms, like blogs, but not personal blogs. Blogs like, lifestyle blogs.
So you want to know, so Kesi, may I try to get an interview with Mortimer? You can link me to Mortimer.
I don't have links to the artist.
Okay. All right.
I do PR as well. I do PR for like models and the influencers that I manage. I do PR as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So we spoke about your career in detail, which is very interesting. And we also mentioned some of your successes, achievements. Could you list a few and tell us where people can find you online before we move on to the challenges?
My achievements. So you mean like career-wise or just?
It can be both.
I list all the okay, so
not all of them, just a few.
Important ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so like for me, I don't know how you gauge achievement, but for me, it's being recognized in my community, right? So for one, I was asked in 2014. I was asked to be a judge and presenter at the Blog Award, which I thought was really cool. I actually presented an award to Afaya and Monique Kennedy for their blog that they had at the time, which was really a really cool lifestyle blog. They don't have it anymore, but at the time it was a really fun initiative and stuff. And then 2019, I was nominated by Digital Jamaican as a micro influencer to watch in that year. And that was incredible for me because I had been writing about marketing, advertising, social media, public relations for about 7 years at the time. And I'm not saying nobody was reading my blog, but I was never recognized publicly. So I mean, like I would write about YouTubers, for example. I would interview YouTubers. This was before being on YouTube was like a thing, right? I would write about the trends in social media and stuff like that. And now being recognized for that, for my willingness to share information about social media and tips and personal branding and all these things, it was really like an eye opener for me, and it was almost like the catalyst for me to start Love Not Like, because out of that, because there were other people in the group, that's when we went on the trip, and that's what kind of positioned us and positioned me, to say, all right, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna monetize. We're gonna allow you to monetize, and we're gonna allow you to have opportunities where you can monetize your platforms and live this digital nomad lifestyle.
Okay. And where can our viewers, listeners find you online?
So I'm everywhere. Kesi Gardner, Gardner, on Instagram and Facebook, and then on Twitter I am Kesia Gardner, Gardner, and then you can go to my website, kesigardner.com, and I also have the Storyteller Agency.co, which is the agency's website.
Okay. All right, so that's awesome. Congrats on all your achievements. I know you haven't listed all of them because I have a list here, but that's fine. We'll tell our viewers about it in text, written form. Let's speak about your challenges. What are some of the things, other than the car crash, that you thought would break you?
This is a little personal, but like I remember I said earlier that I suffered from depression. So depression has been something I've been dealing with since I was about 17, 18 years old, and I actually moved to New York. and had to deal with the change of like the environment. I think the first like month I was there was a snowstorm, like 8 feet of snow. It was just ridiculous. And so I realized that I had that tendency to get depressed during the winter time. But then also I think there is a stigma that if you are creative, you do have the tendency to suffer from depression. So I've had bouts of depression throughout my life that have sort of immobilized me, crippled my growth, crippled my self-confidence. And we say it's clinical, right? But a lot of it is environmental, and also just not having people who understand you and get you and get your quirkiness and stuff like that. So that has been, I think, my biggest challenge, is dealing with that.
You say you're dealing with it still, or it's something that you...
With depression, I mean, it's not something that goes away. What I had to do is I had to go to therapy, and I had to learn the skills in order to cope with it. And so, like, for example, before, when I would get depressed, I would sort of just curl up in a ball, and because it usually would be because of something that happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So say, okay, so I didn't win the pitch and I didn't get the account. I get depressed, sleep in my bed for days because I didn't win, right? And then I come from a family of very high achievers. Everybody in my family is very, my grandfather was a principal. Both my grandparents were teachers and stuff like that. So there's that sort of like, and my mother was the head girl of her high school, and then of course she worked for the UN, and she was like an executive. She had a very high level job. So there's that, like, that there's that bar. You need to reach that bar, and so always feeling like I couldn't achieve that and couldn't live up to expectations of that. And just being crippled by that and lacking self-confidence and not feeling good enough and not feeling like I deserve anything. But I think it was mostly because, like I said before, being in a male dominant society where you have to deal with men telling you that you don't know what you're talking about, just go sit down over there and take notes. I mean, I've had men throw papers at me.
Throw papers?
Like,
wow.
Yeah, like presenting my strategy, and they like just throw it on the floor like, this is crap. I've had men corner me in the office late at night when you're working. So just having to deal with constantly being criticized, and I mean, it's not even like criticized because of you as a person. It's criticized because of your gender. That's just ridiculous. And then it kind of affected even the way that I dressed, because I didn't want to attract too much attention, right? So I would never dress too sexy, never wear makeup, never get my hair done, because it just would attract unnecessary attention. But as it doesn't matter. You could have on a hairnet and a caucus bag, you're still going to get people trying to, say things to you. So therapy helped, because the kind of therapy that I did, I think it's called cognitive behavior therapy, is that it teaches you how to deal with life, basically coping skills. So like, okay, so you didn't win the pitch, now what? What's the next? And then kind of weighing the pros and cons of everything. And also just gratitude, right? Like feeling grateful for having what you do have. And also, I meditate as well. So, the meditation sort of helps you to kind of like just come back to a certain level, and, also having balance. So now, me being self-employed and doing my own thing, I no longer have to worry about some boss telling me, why aren't you here? Like, it's 9:00, why aren't you here? Or having to ask permission to do something like this. Because I remember I was interviewed and I had to ask my boss permission. Can I do this? Like, now not having to ask permission from anybody at all. I can do whatever I want and say whatever I want, and not have to worry about somebody giving me a hard time. I mean, and I've even had people say to me, bosses say to me, well, you're too concerned about your personal brand. And I'm like, but you hired me because of my personal brand. Like, you hired me because of who I am online and who I present myself to be, and because of my achievement. So
there's a lot coming up from what you said that I would like to question. But unfortunately, we have committed to 30 minutes. I do want to ask, I think, one question. Mental health is very important, something that we often gloss over, and we don't recognize that we need the assistance and we need the breaks and we need to take control or probably transition or have a change, like you change from being an employee to an entrepreneur, and that's probably was the best move. So that's something that we need to address, and we will speak about hopefully in the future episodes of Tallawah, like have a whole series on it, which I will discuss with my co-host. You said that you were working in US for a while, and you did feel as if you had the creative control. Do you realize the differences in the workforce in Jamaica versus in America? Were you as depressed in America, or what happened in terms of your mental state in both countries?
I did have bouts of depression in America, but I think it was more to do with lack of funds than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Like not having the money to go, like I said, literally having to scrape to the bottom of the bag to try to find the money to go for transportation. It was hard dealing with the work. I'm not saying all roses. I did have to deal with discrimination, even in working in an African
Thank
focused
you. Yeah.
field. I did have to deal with chauvinistic men, particularly African men can be a bit chauvinistic.
Mm-hmm.
I had to deal with a lot of the same things. I wouldn't say working in America. I think people have this impression like working in America is like, the Mecca and all your problems will be solved. No, it's the same. In
It's the
fact, I
same.
think it's
Oh.
probably worse working in America because even though I did have creative control, I also had to deal with a lot of other issues like, Americans feeling threatened by me because
Oh.
they're like, why are you here? Like, why do you have this job? I can do this job. Why are they paying, thousands of dollars to have your work, to pay for your work permit when I can do your job kind of thing? Or, you're from Jamaica, you don't know anything, you don't have any experience in this sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, there is that.
Yeah.
There is that. Anybody who thinks that moving to America is going to solve their problems, no, it's not. And for me, it was harder living in America than it is living here because, first of all, you have sunshine here, right?
Yeah.
Second of all, you don't have to travel 2 hours to get everywhere. I mean, unless you're going to the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
Transportation is not, even though we complain about public transportation here, public transportation is not as bad as you would think. Where I lived in Maryland, the bus was like 15-minute walk, like literally. And then you don't know when the bus is coming. Like it might come every hour. And if you miss the bus, you have to wait another hour. And then, transportation was very expensive. So even getting a taxi, I'm spending like $20 just to go from, and that's not my full route, that's just to get to the train station. So I think people think that, living in America, no, definitely not. And as much as I was celebrated where I was and I had CEO was like a family friend, you know what I mean? So I had somebody kind of watching over and looking out for me and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different. And somebody kind of like a mentor to guide me and stuff like that. I definitely think there's so much opportunity here. And I mean, I talk about it all the time. I mean, just look at what we're doing with Love Not Likes. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and we've just scratched the surface really of
Yeah.
what we do. Jamaica is ripe for investment. There's a lot of things happening. The government has really invested in the creative careers and creative industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think there is more opportunity here, especially if you're a creative. I see a lot of people complain about it on Twitter, like they complain about not having opportunities being a creative. But I think that there's more opportunity now in 2020 than there was in, 2002 when I graduated from art school. Like you have people coming here to Jamaica, like Lori Harvey came here the other day. She did like a full on film, she did a whole film just about her trip to Jamaica. There's just so much opportunity, but you have to create space for it, right? You have to find the space.
I agree.
So even like the podcast is very new to Jamaica, but there's just the range of things that we could talk about, in terms of topics, just endless. Like, I want to do a marketing podcast and talk about
Sounds awesome.
yeah, we're planning on doing it. Just not sure when. You could talk about. Oh, you could just have a podcast about weed. I think there's actually one just talking about weed and like weed. Obviously, I'm not on it because I don't smoke weed, but there's just the possibilities. I think even like if you notice like the finance Twitter, they're talking about stocks and investing and stuff like that. I think that, and even doctors, like there's a whole doctor influencer community where they're
That's coming up. Yeah, I see that too.
yeah, they're educating you
Yeah.
on all of this stuff. So I think that the possibilities for that, and then without getting in too much trouble, traditional media, because I talk about it all the time, where the attention is. So I did a presentation the other day to a group of students, high school students. They're not watching TV, they're online. And so we have to go where the attention is. And so digital is definitely where people are. They're definitely online. They're on their phones. They're surfing the web. They're on Instagram. They're on YouTube. YouTube is the second social media network as of 2019. So it definitely needs to be a place where we're spending our attention on. That's where people are. Based on the research, it's mostly boys, mostly men. I mean, men are online, and they're playing video games, and they're watching comedy skits. They're people doing all kind of crazy things, and they're watching stunts, and they're watching car reviews and stuff like that. And that's the thing. I feel like there's just, in terms of content, in terms of diverse content, there are just so many opportunities that I have not been capitalized on, and have not, and I'm not even talking about necessarily being sponsored, although I think it's changing. I think that because I've had discussions with brands, and they're like, well, I'm not getting the return on my investment in traditional media. I know I need to be there, but I don't feel like I'm getting the ROI, and so this new media, like these podcasts, somewhere where we could be, where people are, you, like yourself, you have your niche community, and your niche community, they're very loyal. They're listening to the podcast, they're invested in you and stuff like that. So you might not get like, a whole bag of ROI on it, but you're still able to have that presence, in spaces where the attention is. So I could talk about this all day, by the
I
way.
realize. It sounds like we started the marketing podcast right now. But that's pretty great, because it's not just young people that are on social media. It's our grandmas and great grandmas who are still here, and grandparents. And it's something that, you're right, we definitely need to invest in and continue to grow in. So we're really grateful to you for sharing that with us, and also what you had to deal with in both landscapes. It's an eye opener, especially for those who believe that America is the land that you need to go, or any foreign country. Every country has its challenges and its perks, and that's something that we need to be aware of. Thank you so much for pointing out that Jamaica is ripe for investment. And one thing that we're not doing as Jamaicans is investing in our own country. We're allowing, hopefully getting in trouble for this or not, but we're not. We're allowing foreigners to come here and create their own spaces or take up spaces, and before you know it, there is not going to be enough space left for us. So we definitely need to take charge of that, and become more invested in our country and who we are as a people. So thank you so much for mentioning that. I also know that you did something with Kingston Creative, and they're also very passionate about the creative industry in Jamaica. So we could talk about a lot. I know we're on the same levels as it relates to creativity, and also, spaces and so forth. Let's wrap up in 3 questions.
I don't know how you said this all in half an hour.
I know, right? We're kind of over. So thank you so much if you're still listening. Thank you for being patient with us and listening to us passing the 30 minutes. We really appreciate that. So, Kesi, tell me, what makes you a proud Jamaican?
I would say that I'm a proud Jamaican because, even though I've lived abroad, I've never changed the way I speak. I've never tried to like adapt, to the foreign country because we've lived in Rome as well. So I've always kind of decided that even though my accent might sound as weird, I still try to maintain, that Jamaicanness. I think, like I said, Jamaica is a beautiful country. To me, the most beautiful in the world. And people always ask me like, where do you want to travel to? And I'm like, I've pretty much traveled. Like I've done Europe, I've done some parts of the States and stuff like that. I don't really want to go anywhere else. In my process, I want to see more of Jamaica. There are places in Jamaica that I haven't seen that I wanted. I've never been to Spanish Bridge. I've
Me
never
neither.
been to, what is it? Is it Blue Lagoon? No, not, I've been to the one in Portland, but there's a Blue Hole. I've never been to Blue Hole. You know, I've never been to Glistening Waters. Like, and these are the things. People are coming in droves to come and see all these things, and I've never done that. And that's kind of too why we started Love Not Likes, because we wanted to travel to these places and showcase the very best of the island. That's kind of part of our initiative, is really to show the best of Jamaica, and which is why, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport has come to us to help them, like with Reggae Month, because, we're showcasing the very best of what Jamaica has to offer. And a lot of these places are free, or if not free, it's not a lot of money to get into. And I think Jamaicans have a tendency to feel like, there's not no good about Jamaica. But there's a lot to see. And I mean, it's gorgeous beaches, and the people too. I mean, like I said, I've been everywhere that I have ever been in the world. I tell them I'm Jamaican. Oh my gosh, they go crazy. They're like, oh my God, you're from Jamaica. Especially in Rome, I remember that. They just love. And when I went to Rome, it was during the time that the Reggae Boys had just wrapped up the World Cup. So I mean, it was like, oh my God. I went to France. I went to Paris during that time, and the taxi driver, he just went crazy. He's like, oh my God, you're from Jamaica. Oh my God. They don't do that so much in the States, but definitely in other parts of the world. So yeah, I do feel very proud of all that we've achieved. I mean, even like, and still achieving, even like, Coffee the other day, winning a Grammy, being the youngest and the first woman to win a Grammy in the reggae category, I think is just amazing. And I just think that we have so much ahead of us as a country. Like, we have so much more to achieve. And I see so much more for us, like, in terms of being even more renowned across the world.
Okay. So big up Jamaica.
Yeah, big up.
Yes. So 2 more questions to go. If there's one question that you could ask yourself in this interview, what would it be?
This is a question that I would ask myself. Where do you see yourself in 5, 10 years? And kind of, who is the person that you want to be? And do you want to be doing the same thing that you're doing now?
And you could briefly answer that one.
I'm going to try briefly answer. Well, this is the thing, right? So I always want to stay one step ahead, right? I never want to get complacent and think, okay, that even what I'm doing now is going to be able to sustain itself for a long term. So what we're trying to do now is get the bloggers and the influencers that I manage, because I manage a group of them, get them to a level where they can create opportunities for themselves and monetize themselves, whether that be through sponsorship, brand partnership. And we also don't want to just focus on Jamaica. We want to be international. So we want to have brand partnerships all over the world with all different kinds of brands. Like I said, we focus on travel and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of the bloggers that I work with, they travel, they do group travel. So that's something that I want to focus on, and also create opportunity for residual income. So basically, whether that be affiliate marketing or, I mean, we're kind of doing it now, but, whether that be affiliate marketing or, group trips. So a lot of them, they do local travel as well, be able to have their group trips and be able to monetize based on their niche communities. So building out their niche communities, so saying, okay, I have a subscriber. If I can get 10 subscribers, I can take them to, somewhere and make money that way. It's just really living life on your own terms, right? And
Yeah.
not feeling that you have to have a job, a 9 to 5, be a slave to a 9 to 5, and not being able to sustain, having the freedom, right? I want to be able to have the freedom that I can go, because me and my friends talk about it all the time. I can say, all right, let's go, to Tulum in Mexico for 2 weeks and not have to worry. Like, I can still work, basically the digital nomad lifestyle.
Okay. Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I do have a question, but I can't ask it now because it will be going through. It will be too long. Which is why we're looking forward to your marketing podcast. And the final question is, what would you like to say to Jamaicans here and abroad creating their own paths for success?
And I said it before, it's, you need to find the spaces. You need to find the empty spaces in the market, the gaps in the market that are not being utilized. And that obviously depends on what your interests are, right? And what your niche is. But that's what we talk about. We talk about niche,
Mm-hmm.
finding that sweet spot where you can own and you can dominate in that area, because there is a lot of opportunity here. I think we also have a very large retirement community. I don't know what the population stats are, but I get the sense that we do have, like, this retirement community who they have the money to spend, and and I think they need stuff to do. Like, they need opportunities. And also for the kids too.
Mm-hmm.
There are not a lot of spaces for kids to really. I mean, if you really think about it, we live in Kingston, and there's only Hope Gardens and Emancipation Park really as, like, public spaces to run up and down and be free. I think I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Create experiences for the kids and for the senior citizens.
Yeah, which are two important, groups that we really need to put at the forefront of society. I think Jamaica will get there. Speaking to you has been awesome. You also gave me an idea for an app. We actually just launched our interview with Joel Dean, who's a software developer at WordPress. Probably I could throw this app idea at him, but you gave me an idea to have an app. I even have the name. It would be Spaces, and we'll have different spaces for different groups, because I believe that Jamaica, as small as we are not as connected. So I always wanted to do something for elders, because after retirement, what do you do, right? So the Spaces app, and I'm winning here, the Spaces app will be a network for elders, and also different opportunities that can happen for them, whether it's charity, link ups, whatever they have to offer, because they do have a lot of richness to give to this society still, in terms of mentorship, and just offering overall advice to us, the younger generation. And I believe that Jamaica can get there if all groups are respected and valued, and we can learn from each other and come together to create that society that we're looking for in 2030, as they like to say. And thank you so much, Kesi. It was awesome speaking to you. Looking forward to what you're doing. Tallawah will definitely stay connected, and we're rooting for you here at Tallawah. And also, you never know, something that we need to speak to off air is probably collaborate for a children's book, because that's what I do. I write children's books.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we'll speak. So thank you so much for listening to Tallawah. Once again, we have Kesi Gardner, our phenomenal guest here. Thank you for listening, watching. Please subscribe. Please stay tuned for more on Tallawah. Bless.